Okay.
Hey, Mark, thank you.
Okay. Can you all see my screen that says agenda?
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, so I haven't actually made an agenda. This is some slides I'm putting together for a customer we're working with at the moment. And Jira is a really big part of convincing their dev teams to get on board. It's a project that's actually been driven by the security team. They want to get all source code and everything into GitLab so it can all be subject to scanning. And there are some teams that are stuck in pre-VCS days. So we're trying to drag them, kicking and screaming into the 21st century. But a big part of this is if we can get the Jira integration working. So I played around with it. And if you've ever done this before, I don't imagine anything I'm going to show you is going to be, revolutionary or, ground shaking or anything like that. But I thought it'd be useful in case anyone hasn't done this, and we can always record it. And then if the first time anyone wants to set this stuff up or find out about it, we've got a recording. And there's a chat. Yep. Exactly. Yes, Glenn. I don't think I did I?
I don't think so. I just forgot to say it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like I tried to remember to do so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, what I've done is I got this going in my home lab. So I've got an omnibus installation of GitLab running here. And I've also got Jira running, which I've got going in a Docker container. For reference, if you want to do this yourself, it's quite straightforward. I've got here's the Docker file. Can you see that, or do I need to zoom in?
No, I can see it fine.
Cool. Yeah, that's it. It's a really simple Docker file that just starts using the official container. When you start it, it'll prompt you for a license, and you can, if I just use like a personal account, you can go and create like a trial license that's good for, I don't know, 30 days or something like that. It's enough to test the integration anyway. And the only other thing I had to do with it is so I could get Let's Encrypt going, I had to stick it behind an Nginx proxy, which was because it's running in a home lab, and that's how I need to expose it to the outside world. And I found that there is some documentation on what to do if you're running Jira behind an Nginx proxy, but effectively you just have to take the server.xml.j2 file out of the container and add these lines that I've highlighted here that says, okay, traffic coming into this thing is over this, this scheme, that's the URL and that's the port. I only mention that because, as it turns out, having HTTPS, like TLS encryption, is required between both endpoints. If you try and set up the integration just using like bog standard HTTP, it doesn't seem to work. And I got quite a few errors with things saying, no, it must be a secure endpoint, etc. So just worth bearing in mind. And that's what that line does in my Docker compose. But you might not need that. So according to this sort of deck I put together, I've covered like the integrations and workflows and what you actually get out of it. I figure for this, what I'll do is I'll just skip through this very briefly, and then I'll actually show you it, and then we'll look at the setup side of it. Okay, or vice versa. I'm open. And if anyone's got any questions or comments or anything, just shout out as we go along. Okay, because I really haven't rehearsed this. I don't really have a script or anything. So, right. So some of the benefits you get out of it. First off, you get issue synchronization. Okay, so anything that you create in Jira, any tickets that you can create, you can view them straight from within GitLab itself, which is really sweet. And there's also an integration that goes the other way so that Jira can see what's going on inside GitLab. And what happens with that is you can see all the commits and activity that happened on something as long as you reference the Jira issue, the ticket name like test-1 or whatever. As long as you reference that in like your branches or your commit messages or your merge requests, it can link them together. So as an example in Jira, this is what it looks like. You can see there's all these commits, merge requests and things happening. And we've also enabled, there's a transitions thing that you can enable. So if you put the magic words closes test1 or resolves test1 or something like that, it can automatically move that Jira ticket or issue or whatever. Yeah, issue is what we call them. It moves that issue into the done pile automatically for you. And there's also some other stuff you can do here, like you can configure it so that, for instance, a merge request cannot be closed unless it has an associated Jira issue with it, which is quite nice as a sort of built-in policy thing. So I'll show you it. So I've got this enabled on a few projects. If I go in here, I'll probably zoom in now. I'll zoom in just a little bit. So in Jira, if I go to my project, and I'll show you how I've done all like the different projects and the mappings and all of that stuff. Let's go to my test project, and here's the backlog, and let's just, I don't know. Okay, so I've now got a new issue. Yeah, and if I go here, have I mentioned, by the way, I don't like Jira?
Nobody does.
Yeah, I'm like getting PTSD, like going through this stuff again. Anyway, so here's the issue. And if we go back to my test project, there is a built-in thing. I think this is done, yeah, under the plans section, there's a Jira issues and an open Jira link. And if I click on Jira issues, you see this is actually showing up now. Interestingly, that I'm guessing should be a Jira logo. I've no idea why it isn't rendering or why I'm just getting a text thing here. I'll look at that some other point. But anyway, I can see this has been created, and I can actually click in it, and you've got some details and things that are present here. So that's really cool. You can see the issues and things in Jira. But if we do something to actually generate some activity in Jira, I'll show you how the what it looks like on the other side. So if I go back to test project, let's make a new branch. And I'll call it, I don't know, demo. Oh, actually, you know what I should have done? This is better. Let's go back. Let's make a branch and we'll call it after our Jira issue. Right, now it will be able to track it. And let's just edit something in here. There we go. Testing again, and in my commit message, I'll reference this. So working on test 3. Yeah, that'll do. You know, you can put a full commit message in, but the important thing is it's finding like that key. Okay, so that's now gone. If I go over to Jira now, here we go. It's already found that there's a branch. If I refresh this, it might know that, yeah, there we go, under commit. So this it's already started tracking this, and the activity is getting recorded. Like I made a commit and I mentioned it, and here's the link to it. And this also works if you do, yeah, let's do a merge request. Working on test 3, because I called the branch the same thing as a Jira, as an open Jira issue. When I go to close it, it automatically populates it with this text as well, which is really nice. So yeah, let's do that. Create merge request. And there we go. I will merge it. And if we go back over here and refresh, here we go. Yeah, so it's all been updated, so we can track it. There's the commit, there's the merge request, and there's the, you know, it's been closed by that commit, and you can see it's actually moved into the done pile now. So all of that automation's just happened for us, which is really nice. So the way you go about hooking all of these things up, apart from, yeah, the HTTPS, the TLS stuff, which is required, you do have to allow access, obviously, to like your local network, wherever Jira is hosted. I've not done this process, by the way, with like the hosted Jira cloud thing or whatever their SaaS thing is. I don't actually know what the process involved there is. This is only, I hasten to add, for like self-hosted stuff. Yeah, so you have to allow access to your internal network, and that's you do through the GitLab network admin stuff. The other thing you need is a Jira personal access token, and this is for the integration so that GitLab can see Jira issues. It works pretty much the same way that we think of, you know, in GitLab as personal access tokens. You just go in, see if I can remember it. It's profile, I think. Yeah. Is you just go to your user account profile and then you create a personal access token. So yeah, this does mean that the user that this personal access token is associated with needs to have the ability to, I think, be like an owner of the various projects. So that's a consideration you'll have to make. And you have to decide whether you're going to reuse the same connection, because you could, in theory, have a separate user and a separate personal access token for each project or whatever that you want to hook up. If you wanted to like limit the blast radius of one of these tokens getting, you know, leaked or exposed or whatever, that's probably what we'd suggest, I'm guessing. But you don't actually need to. Everything can work over the same like user connection, as long as that user's got the ability to, I think it's owner. I don't think you need admin privileges. I think it is just owner on Jira of these projects, which I've got a few going here. So the first thing you do when you do this, if you go to the admin area in GitLab and go to settings and integrations, you can find Jira in the list and you configure it, which I've already done, but it shows up like this, and it's really straightforward. You just stick the URL in. The API URL you can leave blank if it's the same as the web URL. Use a personal access token, put your token in, and then I've ticked all of these things and said, so if someone makes a commit or a merge request, I want to send everything, including all the details along with it. And I want to enable Jira transitions, which means that's the thing when I put closes and then the issue number, it will automatically move it. Down here, you've got some issue matching about how it detects those issue keys, I think it calls them. Yeah, issue keys. I've left these blank. I got confused to start with because I thought these were the things that reference the actual, like how you could limit it or whatever to particular projects. That's done in a separate place. This is only if you're using different key formats, so not, you know, Jira-1 or something like that, or you're putting a prefix in them. So I just left these things blank. And then after you've got that, that's like the base configuration that other projects can inherit, as it were. So if we pick let's go back and I'll show you how this is configured. If we let's go to my first test project first. And in here, we've got the settings and integration. And when you go into individual projects to enable Jira, there's this little drop down up here that says use default settings or use custom settings. What you want to do is go to use custom settings, and then you can scroll down and you can enable Jira issues. And then this is where you put your what the Jira project prefix is in there. And all the other details like the personal access token, it says just leave blank to use the current configuration. So they're not exposed, but if you can just use the base default ones that you've configured. And there's also this thing, I haven't played around with this, but apparently, like if the vulnerabilities are created, you know, there's the option in the security dashboard to automatically create issues from vulnerabilities. You can automate that process in Jira, apparently, but I've not tried that. And there's a little test settings button you can click and connection successful. So if you look at my other projects, I've got here another test. Yeah. And integrations, the Jira in this one again is using custom settings, but you see I'm using a different project key, and that's how I map them. These different projects get mapped to these different projects here. Okay. And the other side of it, which is how you get Jira to see all the changes and track the changes that are happening in GitLab, it's one of these processes where you have to create callback URLs and tokens. So you have to have like two windows open. really and swap between them. So in the case that I'm thinking of with this customer, this is going to necessitate getting the Jira teams and the GitLab admins together and putting them together. So what you do first is it's called an application link in Jira. And that you can get to by going to settings and applications. And yeah, application links on the left-hand side. So you can create a new application. Again, if you're concerned about limiting like the blast radius of things getting leaked or exposed or whatever, you might want to do one of these per team, I guess. I've just used the same one for all the connectivity. And when you create this, you also have to go into GitLab, and it's, where's the setting? Yeah, add new application. Yeah, so we have to go to your user account this time. Preferences. So yeah, you'll need a user account on GitLab that has the relevant permissions to repositories again. So this is why you might want to split things out into, I guess, like per project or per group basis. But yeah, there's this applications button, and you can add new application, and you just give it a name like Jira, and tick the API box, which apparently is required for this to work. And then you put the details from one thing into the other. So that will give you, in Jira, you'll get a callback URL, which you can paste into that box. And when you go through this process, this will give you, when you add a new application in GitLab, this gives you a new credential, a new password, which for some reason is upside down in that window. That's interesting. I'll change that. Yeah, so this creates a new account, gives you a password or a credential key, which you can then go back into Jira and paste that in. And once you've got those two things done, so it's a bit of, set up in one, go to the other, do some more setup, copy, callback URLs and credentials from one to the other. Once you've done that, the next thing you do, this is so Jira can talk to GitLab, you then need to go to this thing, DVCS accounts, and this is where you hook things up per group. Yes, per group, I think. Yeah, it must be because I've got one for that. Yeah. So it's one per group. And in there, when you're setting this up, it's this window. Yep. You point it to it calls it a team in Jira, but what it really is the name of the group as it exists in GitLab. So in other words, that part of the URL, okay, however it appears there, that's what you put in, and that gives it access to that particular group. When that's in place, you can you just you tell it you want to use the account, the application link that you created earlier, and then these DVCS accounts can then use that connection to connect back to GitLab, and then they can get all the events that are happening, like commits, branches, merge requests, and so on. So there's quite a few sort of accounts or connection places that you need to set this up in. And that means, I guess, when you're doing it, you're going to have to consider what your group structure looks like on both sides and how you're going to map them. And you also need to consider, are you just going to do something quick and easy, which would be to create the just one connector account and one personal access token and have like a user that can access everything, or are you going to go sort of more granular, which I'm assuming would be what we would recommend customers do. But anyway, that's it. That's the sum total of what I know about Jira integration after like the last few days. Discuss.
Thanks for this, Mark. From what I've seen, I think it's important when we work with teams that they know that GitLab is the controller, I guess, in this situation, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll get the ask, oh, can we be in Jira and have it close a GitLab issue and kind of
Mm-hmm.
backwards implementation. And so it's good to understand how this hookup works, because we want to make sure it's like we're guiding them towards our platform, but
Yeah.
we're still allowing for the integration, but we want them to move. Like there is still a little bit of that, like let's get you
Yeah.
out of the Jira system. So I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah. It's also, you know, our own once you go back to, if you go to use just using GitLab issues, there's a lot nicer management. Like you don't need any of this integration stuff to start with, but you also got things like, you know, when you create issues, you can automatically create merge requests and things and create branches. And it's a much nicer experience than this. But yeah, certainly for the customer I'm working with at the moment, if they can't link Jira together with GitLab, they're really not going to adopt it, and they can't just replace Jira, because even though we could say, hey, you know, you're paying for the same thing twice, you know, you've got GitLab, why not use that? There's so many other parts of the business that are deeply tied into Jira and are using it, so they're never going to get rid of Jira completely. Or they, you know, they might do. I don't know. We'll keep pushing, but for the time being, Jira is there. It's they need it, and this is like the perfect thing to actually get them using the platform, and then they can still tie all their history together. And actually having like the auto closing stuff is in many ways is a lot nicer than their current workflow.
Exactly. This is like and I mean this in a good way, the level zero of getting them to understand
Yeah.
that GitLab can integrate and do the basic hookup to Jira, in case they've been a Jira shop and they don't want to make the full transition. Then from a PS perspective, we have Max is working on some of the Jira migration so that when they're ready to transition over to GitLab, we are building out an importer tool that will automatically pull the issues and data and stuff that they had created in Jira into the GitLab board. And then if you remember from last week, product is working on, or they've worked on the ultimate agile planning piece. So that's another piece of the
Yeah.
product that can be like, again, not, I don't want to use the word upsell, but for customers as they're working on their transformation from Jira into GitLab uh planning functionality, it's like this is the three-step approach I think of in terms of like how we can help customers from a PS perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's really two use cases here. So what drove the Atlassian takeout play sales motion was really the fact that Atlassian is retiring their self-managed instances and are pushing their customers to either go to their SaaS or their higher end data center product. So we saw an opportunity to maybe, replace Jira completely. That's why we basically, invested and did the Jira migration tool to basically, move a customer completely out of Jira. But that's a special case because if you are on Atlassian server right now, you're probably already a laggard in terms of using Jira, and some of these guys literally aren't even paying licenses fee any longer. So those folks are more likely to move off of the Atlassian stack in totality. Large
Mm-hmm.
enterprise customers, less likely. It's less likely that you're going to move a large company with thousands of Jira users off into GitLab.
Mm-hmm.
So, always keep in mind different archetypes or different customer profiles that we're dealing with, where one might apply or the other. Got a question for you, Mark. So
Yeah.
what's the impact in terms of metrics? So we provide all this stuff out of the box if you use
Mm-hmm.
GitLab as a platform end to end, right? And this flows into the Dora metrics, and we keep track of all kinds of things in terms of the data model, the data that we track. Now, using Jira, does that basically just ignore those specific data markers, or what's going on, or we don't know?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So yeah, could you repeat?
So if you basically keep using Jira from an issue
Yeah.
management perspective, that means
Yeah.
that really from a data model, the way GitLab tracks issues and understands the status of issues and all that
Oh,
good
right.
stuff
Yeah.
is not being tracked within GitLab. It's basically it's
I
a
don't
complete.
believe it is, because if you look at it, like when you plan things and things like there's no linkage here with anything under the planning
Okay.
side of
Yeah.
things. Like that's just like a completely separate island, if you like.
Yep.
It doesn't have any integration whatsoever. The only things that you do see is that, like, if you go to Jira issues, for instance, you get this little thing which looks kind of the same.
Mhm.
You're obviously very limited in what you can do. So like here's this one, so we can still see the details. There's links to things like, that's what I did. There's the commit, there's the merge request, and
Right.
what have you. But that's it. Oh, and I can click on this thing which pops open Jira.
Yeah, so this is
That's
always,
it.
I think, from the way we can position this from a PS perspective. I mean, the full value of our platform is always just realized if you use our functionality end to end throughout the value stream. As soon as you start integrating bits and pieces all over the place, which we can do, right? We basically lose the visibility to some extent. The reason I'm pointing that out is there's even pieces of the system I don't understand. I've just heard of, like the whole value stream piece, which is supposedly showing you your cycle times, but it's all based on us using the platform end to end.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. I mean,
yep.
this stuff is better than nothing, and it helps get people onto it. But yeah, the end goal should be to have people, the people that are using GitLab, the developers and so on, to actually be using it end to end.
Yeah, I mean, no, this is a real important integration because, as you said, there are some companies that will not just drop Jira and move over to GitLab. That's just the reality in the market.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I'll stop the share then.
Glenn, wake up.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Good morning. I was just gonna say, well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. That's awesome. If there are any other questions folks have, just reach out to myself or Mark via email, via Slack, or even just drop a comment in the enablement open office notes, and we'll try to get that answered for you.
Yeah, and particularly as well, I mean, I'd say this is the first time I've done this, right? So I probably got things wrong, or used wrong terminology or whatever. But if anyone in the future is watching this and notices anything glaringly wrong, do let me know. Okay.
No, I think it was good.
In that case, let's all take some time back. Thank you very much, Mark, again, and take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.